Well, welcome to the Missouri Podcast Live. My name is Dr. Guy Danhoff, and I will be your host over the next hour. As tonight, we're going to be talking about caution when you click, empowering student safety on social media. We're going to be joined with our very special guest, Brad and Kari Boettler, as well as with Alejandra Monroy. And just got a little housekeeping thing. Just want to let everyone know that tonight's podcast is being funded by the CDC. The Missouri Healthy Schools Initiative is supported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as part of a financial assistance award totaling $1.17 million with 100% funding by CDC and certainly by the Health and Human Services. And with that, let's go ahead and get started on tonight's podcast, as this is going to be live. And again, you can feel free to ask any questions or answer your questions live. If you'd like to make any comments, you can just go ahead and do that in the chat. And with that being said, again, tonight we're going to be talking about caution when you click, empowering student safety on social media. Again, my name is Dr. Guy Danhoff, and I will be your host. I've been hosting for the Missouri Healthy Schools over the last 4 years. I've been working with this group, though, for 8 years, and doing all kinds of correspondence work and certainly advocacy work in this space, trying to promote certainly what goes on in Missouri Healthy Schools. Also want to say a big shout out to Shape America, who is also live streaming this right now on their YouTube channel. So I want to say thanks to our friends and certainly our partners at Shape America for allowing us to work this broadcast with them today. So our first guest, we'll bring her on, and we're going to bring on Alejandra Monroy with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And Allie, first of all, just want to say thank you for being on the broadcast. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I am from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, short NCMEC because it's a long
Yeah.
name. Uh, my role is prevention program manager, and my role is to stay up to date where the best practices are when preventing child exploitation, and figure out what are the risks that the children are facing online, and then translate that into digestible materials
Yeah.
for educators, facilitators, parents, and children. So that's kind of my background in NCMEC. Yeah, thank you for having me here.
Well, Allie, what I want to ask you is I always love people's backstory, but how did you get here? I mean, everyone's got a backstory. So kind of tell us a little bit about your background, but specifically why you're so passionate about this kind of work. Because let's just be honest, this is not like a typical mainstream job. Would you agree?
No, it's not.
It's
Um,
not. So it takes a very special person. And I really think our viewers would love to hear your backstory.
yeah, so my entire life have I've been working in different public and social issues. When I was working in housing, I saw clients coming, and when you're doing the intake, you see different types of issues that they were having, like domestic violence and child sexual abuse. And then I noticed that I was making difference when I give them the education tools to advocate for themselves, instead of just kind of fixing it for like 6 months and then they will come. I I started, then there was a job in the local CAC, which is the Children Advocacy Center in Washington, D.C. And I was like, it was a family advocacy specialist. And I was like, if I can do this job, I can do any job. Um, and then I got very passionate, especially about prevention, because I saw that some of the clients that I had with education and resources, they were able to heal, and also by providing education in the community, I will go to schools and talk to parents. And the next day, we will have the call for a forensic interview because of the
Yeah.
training that I gave the night before. So it's very impactful education for parents to empower themselves and protect their children.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I got into prevention and in this field.
Yeah, and I cannot wait for you to unpack. I know one thing that our viewers like to see. I'm really excited to have you on because you've got such a plethora of resources for us
Yeah.
tonight that I think our viewers will very much appreciate. And with that, we're going to bring our next guests and experts as well. And I'd like to bring on right now Kari. I'm going to change the screen angle. There we go. Kari and Brad Boettler. And Kari and Brad, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'd like ask you the same question. I know you got into this field. Brad, start with you though, because you started as an educator and as an administrator, and then we certainly want you to unpack your story of how you created Evan's Voice and why you created Evan's Voice and the type of work that you guys do. With that, I'll turn it over to both you, Brad and Kari.
So thanks for having us on tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to share, and then obviously work with NCMEC and share our story and resources that we have to protect kids and just educate and advocate for the safety of kids. So I've got 25 years, roughly 25 years, almost 25 years in education. I've served in several different roles of being a secondary teacher or work in the school transportation area. Driven the school bus a little bit, worked in alternative school environments, and spent some time as an administrator. And now I'm at the central office level, doing director of operations. So I've had the opportunity to work with a large, diverse range of people in the school setting, and I think that gives me a little bit different perspective than some who have been impacted. The way that our family has. My wife here, Kari, is also in education and works at the elementary level. So our time together and our kids' time with us has obviously been centered around the school and working in a school environment with kids. Unfortunately, like you said, we got into this situation or this line of work or advocacy in an avenue that we didn't necessarily choose. In January of 2024, we lost our son when he took his own life. And at that time, we had no clue why. People in our community or family had no idea, precipitating factor that led to this. Because Evan was an absolute fantastic kid, loved other people. He worked hard, was good at school, had no relationship issues. Just a fine, outstanding kid. And, so we spent about a month between January and February really trying to figure out, what happened? Why did Evan, what led Evan to take his life? And, in February, some messages popped up on his phone, just kind of out of nowhere. And we quickly learned what we hadn't known before, that Evan was a victim of sextortion. And after that, we launched an investigation, or the local police department started an investigation pretty quickly. And obviously we went to trying to figure out, what was this? How did it happen? What's the issue? What is sextortion? Because it's something we didn't know about as parents and even as an educator and working with kids. I knew technology was an issue and could be used in a lot of different ways to negatively impact kids. And we talked about those things with our kids and made sure that they were aware and knew that they could come speak with us about stuff like that because we were an open family. And, we've learned that through the sextortion piece, we decided to go ahead and go public with it because our family was still trying to figure out, hey, what happened? Or we had people from school still reaching out. My kid is still trying to figure out why, or what did they miss? Everybody was thinking that they missed something. So we went public in March, and shortly after we sent the message out, our police department released a public release we had people contacting us and saying, hey, this happened to my kid. Hey, it happened to my kid. Hey, I know people at the school that this has happened to. So, our son had the heart to really protect others and stand up for the underdog, taking care of other people, other kids. And that's really what led us to really engage in Evan's voice and work through the education and advocacy. We go into schools and talk to kids. We talk to public organizations or churches and adults, because I do believe that, education is one of the great pieces that's going to help our kids and save our kids. And the kids need to know what to look out for. The parents need to know that it's out there. It's not necessarily the kids are out looking for these negative things, but there are predators that are really seeking out to find our good kids. And so, that really got us into the line of work, I guess, or advocacy that we really pursue now.
Ultimately, we decided that because of the way, like Brad said, the kind of kid Evan was, if he could help save another person, that's what he would do. And so that's what led us to, form Evan's Voice, and then go out kind of like as a mission to raise awareness and just let people know so they don't end up in the same place we are.
And Kari, with that, what can people expect? I just put it up on the screen. What they can expect if they go to the website, evansvoice.org.
So on our website, we try to keep current with what we've been doing. We just finished an event that we did with foster kids. We did Fostering a Love for Fishing, because Evan loved fishing, and foster kids don't always get that opportunity. So we have pictures from that. We have resources for parents, for kids. Anything that's kind of going on with our organization, and then also resources just for people if they need them.
We link to NCMEC because NCMEC does provide a number of resources for parents and kids to really help out when they find themselves in a negative situation, or even to educate people ahead of time. So,
well, Kari and Brad, as we were preparing for tonight's podcast, I mean, there's obviously no words to share what you guys are living through and going through, other than to say how admirable it is that you're taking such a tragedy and trying to help and pay it forward for others, so that hopefully this will never happen to somebody else. And that we were talking about this, and the predators today. I mean, there's so much, especially on the social media platforms that we're talking about. And I got a chance to tell you about my story. I'll share a little bit, but part of the reason why I wanted to get involved in tonight's podcast, because this is something. I've written 3 books, and in 2 of them, I've got a chapter dedicated to this kind of advocacy that you're talking about, simply because my daughter, who's now 20, but at the time she was 18, just 2 years ago, it didn't have anything to do with sextortion, but it had everything to do with someone trying to scam her for about $1,000. And in that story, she was just trying to keep a new relationship, I guess, with somebody that she met, through direct messaging on her Instagram. And then the next thing you know, they asked about some money. And then when she didn't comply, she saw a video that no kid should ever see, about what possibly could happen to her, which obviously was, to be shot. And that is why this topic, to me, whether it's on the extortion side or the scamming side, but I've also heard stories of people who've been scammed that have also committed suicide because of the consequences of being just living in that fear and being so scared. So this is a very important topic to me. It's something that I get the privilege and opportunity to share at Shape America conference to help with the health and PE, physical education, educators. So this is a big thing. And so where I want to kind of take this now is, and Kari and Brad, will start with you, but what are you, when you have these workshops or you have these opportunities to speak, what are some best practices for parents? So if we're a parent right now and we want to take notes, what are some best practices that you have for parents to certainly protect our kids?
So I think we liked to think that we were doing all the right things. And I think we were doing the right things with our kids. With Brad being an administrator in junior high, like he said, he understood that there were negative impacts of social media. So we held off on our kids getting social media phones. They didn't get phones until they were in junior high and needed them for, calling us to let us know the bus was back from a sporting event or something. And then when Evan turned 16, he asked for social media, and he was such a great kid that, we went ahead and had that conversation about how to use it appropriately and, what it meant to have that responsibility to, take that on. So I think the big part is talking with your kids about how to use social media safely, the impacts and the consequences, but doing it more from a perspective that isn't so much as a do this, kind of thing. But it's a conversation. If parents educate themselves about the things that are out there, like you can only help your kids with what you know. We didn't know extortion was a thing. And so that's why it's a big part for us is to let everybody know, because no matter how many schools we go to, there's always still several people who have never heard of sextortion. And so I think parents becoming educated and knowing what is out there facing their kids so they can talk to their kids and let their kids know that I know what you're up against, and I just want you to be prepared and know what to do in case you find yourself, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. What to do when you find yourself in one of these situations. So I think holding off, as long as you can on getting those phones and social media, and then, just knowing what's out there. It's not anymore just bullying. It's all sorts of dangers that are out there, people looking for your kids. So I think being educated is one of the most powerful things that parents can do. And having that bond with your kid that you are open.
I think knowing the new and emerging apps too, because that's something. There's new games, new applications that are coming out all the time, and kids think that's awesome, and kids typically know that well in advance of parents. But unfortunately, some of the most popular applications that kids are accessing, and even really young kids access, are some of the absolute worst for predators to have access to our kids. So, like Kari said, make sure parents know what the apps are. Make sure that they're aware of how to turn on the safety features, that they sit down with the kid, their kids, their youth kids to make sure that they know how to set those up, and that they're set up as safe as absolutely possible, and that they know who they're communicating with on the other side, because technology allows you to be anybody you want on the opposite side of the screen.
Correct.
Keeping that network as confined as possible, and knowing who they're contacting or playing with on the other side is huge. And I also think having that conversation, like, hey, here's the deal. I know there's going to be mistakes had. I know you're going to get tripped up. I know you might find yourself in this situation. When you do, well, we need to make sure you know who you're going to go to share that with. It might not be me as a dad or a school teacher, but we need to plan that out with our kids, and make sure that they have adults that they can go to with the absolute worst, deepest, darkest issue that they could ever imagine, and have that lined out ahead of time. So when they find themselves in a crisis or a situation, that they know directly who to turn to.
We always tell our parents when we speak to them, and kids when we speak to them, that to choose 3 people, 3 trusted adults or 3 trusted people you could go to. And that's something that we give that as homework that day. Kids, you go home and you find 3 trusted adults that that you can go to, and you tell them ahead of time, you are my trusted person. And when I find myself in a situation, I need to be able to come to you without judgment, without repercussions at that moment. And I need you to help me work through it. And we also tell parents to address that with kids too. Do you know who your 3 people are? Like, if it's not me, that's okay. If it's a teacher, a pastor, whatever it is.
Right.
That's one of our big things, is just making sure that you have those things put in place for how to deal with it when it happens.
And making sure adults know where to turn to get help and resources, and how to report it. The resources that NCMEC have as well. They've got several pieces that can immediately kind of give a little bit of a sense of relief for kids when they find themselves in a negative situation. But I think a lot of times adults think, hey, we can't tell anybody about this because it's awful, it's embarrassing. But then it could be happening to 10 of their friends, and they might not
Right.
know how to deal with it. So making sure that you report it, and understand that they're predators, they're bad people looking to do negative things to our kids. Just the sheer number of those is pretty sickening.
Well, absolutely, and we know the patterns of which they target. I mean, that's what's so disturbing. I mean, they are predators. They're preying on certain demographics. I know Allie will get into that in just a second, but the only other thing I would add to what Brad, and Kari, what you guys just said, and this was something that my wife and I discovered with my daughter's situation, but we also leaned in heavy on her best friend. If you're spending a lot of time with a friend and you notice any type of activity, if our daughter's off for whatever reason, please tell them. And that has been another good thing, because we know they're going to confide in somebody something. Okay, and I love what you guys said about going to the adults, and we need that. But I got to tell you another thing that and I've been speaking on this topic obviously for the last few years, but in second, people have said the same thing, that a lot of times they're going to tell their best friend. Yeah. Because they trust them, and we're now asking best friends, say, hey, like, I'm sorry, but if our daughter's off, please tell us, whatever that case may be. And who knows why. I mean, it might not be related to any of this, but it could be something else. But at the same time, if there is, please let us know. And we've been very fortunate to have that kind of open communication, with that dynamic or that relationship. So anything you add, Brad?
I think it kind of goes back to the see something, say something. If you see your friend, like you said, exactly. That goes for anything.
And we've got the hashtag too, like, let's talk about it, because having that conversation and can open and in communication is huge.
So with that, Allie, let's bring it back to you now. I mean, you've got a chance to hear some of the things that were mentioned. From your perspective, I'm going to bring it back up. What best practices did you guys subscribe to? Again, if parents right now are taking notes, because I know when I go back and watch this podcast, I'm taking some more notes on this topic, because it's so important, so we can certainly prevent this from happening, hopefully, again.
No, what everybody said, that I agree with 100%. Some of the things that maybe is worth mentioning is that a lot of the times parents said, like, what are the safety features? And it's not that we say no to those safety features, but kids are so smart when it comes to with technology. They can use other accounts. They can reset them. They can look in YouTube how to take them out. And I think for us adults is really overwhelming to think about technology, because kids are just so much smarter than us. But we have an advantage that they don't have. We know the social and emotional and relationship dynamics, because we are adults. We already went to all of those things that children are going through, and also separating between online and offline. They are making relationships, friendships. They are developing skills online and offline. And like it was mentioned, like, talk about those relationships. How is trust built? What to do if you want to fit in. And we see in gaming that a lot of the times kids will not disengage even if their boundaries are crossed, because they want to feel that peer pressure, that social pressure, to be part of that community. So like teaching them about, like, how we can do to be part of that community without people breaking those boundaries with us. So I think if we can talk about the social dynamics instead of the technology, it can be more digestible for us adults to have those conversations. And like they say, if they come to you as a trusted adult, we have in NCMEC this safety card. I don't remember the exact name, But if a child give it to you, sometimes you need a physical thing to be from a mom or a dad to be like, okay, now I'm going to be a safe adult. And
Right.
then it happens to me sometimes. I'm with my niece and I do something, and then I'm like, oh, that wasn't a safe adult kind of moment. So sometimes we need to remind ourselves that when they come to us, they need that safe adult. And then
Yeah.
later we can talk about what happened, or but that moment they need our help. So if we talk about those things with our kids, and like they say, a lot of the times kids don't comfort because they think they're the only ones going through that.
Yeah.
We saw it with the initial of extortion. Kids were coming to us, and they were like, "I wanted to go away. This is only happening to me," and you don't know that it's happening to other kids. So the more we speak out about what's happening, the more kids can be empowered to be like, this is a victimization, this is a crime, and I need to take action, instead of like, I did something wrong or this is happening to me.
Yep.
But all of those feelings, they are so overwhelming when kids are facing victimization.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are watching live right now, if you want to ask a question, just go ahead. I know you're watching it on YouTube. Just go ahead and type in a comment or a question. We'll be happy to, address it to our panelists. Because again, part of this podcast literally is for you. I mean, this is why we put this together, so that we can certainly continue to work on, basically empowering our student safety on social media. And so, with that, let's go to our next big bucket, and that's going to be on. And Allie, we'll stick with you, but let's talk about grooming and what do we mean by identifying red flags in relationships? What does that mean? And again, if I'm a viewer, why is this important for me to know?
Yeah, I mean, especially like social media and gaming, there are many, and I'm gonna call it toxic interactions, right? Because of the logistics of social media and gaming. And like I mentioned before, some kids are not going to put boundaries because they want to be part of that community.
Right.
And I always said that my mom taught me a lot about unhealthy relationships and healthy relationships, but she didn't talk to me about the gray areas of relationships when somebody's breaking that boundary and then makes you feel like, oh, it's your fault or you're being crazy, or, everybody does that. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that we tell them about the red flags, but it's also
Yeah.
important that we mimic what is a healthy relationship. Because if it was that easy as the red flags, many other kids will be like, oh, this is a red flag, I'm going to shut it down.
Yeah.
But they are having relationships with these with gamers, and they don't know if it's a 40 years old or a 14 years old, because they might have avatars and stuff like that. So
Right.
healthy relationships is really important, and we also have to model that. When I work with survivors of child sexual abuse and trafficking,
Yeah.
grooming is something that you don't see while it's happening. It kind of takes time after your healing process to be like, oh my gosh, this was happening and I didn't see it, and oh my gosh, now I can connect it to other behavior that that person was doing.
Yep.
Um, because some of the things are things that we might do in our regular days, right? If it was that black and white, it would be so much easier for kids and for us to identify. So healthy relationships are so important. Boundaries, how is trust developed? I think kids are really easy to trust, and because we're adults, we know that sometimes when we're teenagers, we trusted somebody and they were our best friend for a month, and then they did bad things to us, and then we might meet somebody else and they were our best friend for a month. And with experiences, we learned that trust is something that is earned by time,
Yeah.
and it can be very easy to break. Resiliency, like Carrie and Brad mentioned, we get a lot of reports from friends of the child that is being victimized. So
Wow.
teaching, like you were saying, like if you see something in my child or in your
Right.
friend, be an upstander, ask for
Yeah.
help, report, give them information. So we need to talk about being an upstander and what is a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Allie, we actually have a comment. I'm going to put it on the screen and I'll address it to you. And then Brad and Carrie, you guys can weigh in. This is actually coming from a parent. So I love this question. And so, Allie, it's for you. You guys can see it on the screen. How do you know how to talk to your kids in an age appropriate way when they're asking for phones and games like Roblox? My son is 8 and he keeps asking me more all the time. So here's a great case study, right? Parent is asking, I got my 8-year-old just pounding me about, hey, when can I get a phone? And when can I get a game like Roblox? I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what that game is, but I sure hope that one of you guys do. So we'll start with you, Allie. How would you, what advice would you give a parent?
I think first of all, think about when will be an appropriate time for your child to have that phone or that game. But ask questions. What did you want the Roblox or that game? And do a little bit about research about how is it look. I downloaded Roblox and it was a different world. I deleted it immediately
Oh,
because I
jeez.
didn't understand it. But
Right.
ask questions about why they want to play. And if you feel comfortable, maybe give them 10 or 20 minutes. If you don't feel comfortable, try to find another alternatives, another games that might be more
Yeah.
appropriate. And talk about that, even it is advertised for young kids,
Yeah.
you're still not feeling comfortable for them to have that game, and maybe you can revisit the topic in a year, and they can come out with why they want it, what are the goals that they want to have that game for.
Yeah.
You can do an agreement about, like, how many time or how are you going to check the rooms that they are playing, or some
Right.
agreement that you might have and makes you feel more comfortable. But if you are not feeling comfortable, you can just explain that in this household we have these rules, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you the phone or the game at this time, but we can revisit in another time. I mean, I'm saying it more as a professional person, but I will refer to
Well,
Carrie and
we're gonna
about.
let our parents weigh in. I
Yes,
mean, and obviously they know all about sons. So,
yeah.
with that, Brad and Carrie, what advice would you give this parent?
So, not to scare you, but Roblox is one of the absolute worst for kids. Predators are lurking on Roblox, trying to
Okay.
get kids all the time. So it's not necessarily a safe place, even though they have provisions put in place for safety. They put those out
Right.
there that they're trying, but as
Yeah.
I said, kids know how to work around those things. So her point about sitting down and having the conversation and getting kids to explain why, I think is a great idea. Like, why do you
Yeah.
want? Most likely it's for social and to be a part of that community, right?
Right.
I think so. We tried that with Evan. We held off on Instagram and Snapchat, and we
Okay.
told him, like, we're not doing that. And that was kind of one of the things we did until we revisited, as she said. And I think that's a great plan. If you do decide, I think it's a great idea for you to get on there and do it yourself. Like, venture into the platform, look up YouTube videos on how to play it so you can educate yourself, and then sit down with your kid and play it with your kid.
Yeah.
So that they're running into in the application, so how the game works. because if you just let them go play it and you have no idea what they're into, then you're setting yourself up for a dangerous, spot anyway. So I think getting yourself on the app and taking part in it, like that's a chance for you to do something that your kid likes to do. It's a chance for you to, bond over that. If you educate yourself on it, I think it says a lot as a parent to educate yourself in that application so you can talk to your kid about it and be a part of something that they really like to do.
And
Maybe you can start with just watching the YouTube videos together, and then small steps, because the reality is that we can't keep our kids in a bubble, and we need to make sure that we make them make safety risk, what I call it. It's not the best way to call it, but if they want to play Roblox, they're going to find a way. I mean, just think about when you were 10, 15. I always say, my mom told me not to put a tattoo. If you get a tattoo, I will dishonor you. And I got a tattoo. They're kids. They're kids. So, like, how do we make an environment for them to take those risks in a safety way? Whatever you feel comfortable, help them. Maybe watch a YouTube video, and then from there, maybe give them 10 minutes. But most importantly, video games should not be played on private spaces. Never. And they should never go to their bedroom with their phone, their iPads, their gaming, because offenders of extortion and other type of victimizations just torture these kids when they are in the middle of the night. So you need to have their phones when they're going to sleep, and check their phones. What are they doing? And make it in a way that is comfortable for them. Maybe once a week. Maybe you sit next to me while I look and ask questions about who is this person, how are you playing with this person.
Another strategy I would almost recommend is if your kids have a tight knit group of friends that they always hang out with and play with, or want to play video games with, communicate with the parent groups, the other parents, and say, hey, does your kid play Roblox? Or, if you as a parent group decide, hey, Roblox probably isn't the best thing for our kid, what's something else they can do together? Have that, connection, that community, that fit in with other kids, and make that pact kind of as a parent group, or make sure that they know, the names of those other the kids, so that when they get on the game and they're playing with, this certain character or certain named individual, that they know that that's who is on the other side, or have a better chance of knowing who's on the other side. So, making let's talk about it. Talk about it with your friend group, your adult friends, that, the adults of the other kids, and say, hey, look here, we all want our kids to be safe. And, it takes us all working together. The same thing is, if a kid comes over and he's off, I want you as a parent to tell us, hey, your kid was seemed a little bit different when he came by last night, or when we hung out. So I think opening up that line of communication with parent groups as well.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that was, well, thank you obviously to the parent for, posting that comment. Great question. A great question. And I'm going to come back.
And I think that's always hard. I think that's really hard, because kids do want to fit in, and saying no, or repeatedly saying no is tough as a parent, because you want your kid to be happy and fit with the rest of his kids. So great question.
So with that, Kari and Brad, let's bring this question to you now. Let's talk about identifying red flags in relationships from your perspective, because we know this is a big topic for you guys with what you do, certainly with Evan's Voice. What advice would you have for us on this topic?
So, ultimately what happened to Evan was groomed in a very short time, and grooming, I mean, it takes no time to get these kids won over. But we tell parents and kids alike that if you have somebody who sends you a friend request or hops into your DMs, your direct messages, and this person has a new account, but they don't have very many followers, say they follow a whole bunch of people, that is a good indicator that it is a spam account, that they've just created this and liked a whole bunch of accounts, and they're out for nefarious or, with ill intent. So to watch for when the account was created and how many friends or followers they have. If they're asking you to go to a private platform like WhatsApp or Telegram, I know there are a bunch of new ones out there. It's hard to stay up on all the messaging apps, but if they ask you to go to one that is end-to-end encrypted where the messages are gone, that's a pretty good indicator that they're wanting to have a conversation that is obviously not on the up and up, I guess, if you will. If they ask you to do a video call and their camera doesn't work, but they want you to use your camera, if it's a fast-paced conversation, they're love bombing everything and telling you how amazing you are and just really trying to win you over. And then, it heads into a more romantic, I guess, or inappropriate type conversation. That's a red flag. And like Ali said, a lot of times these things are happening and you don't realize it because you're in the moment and you're texting, right. Kids are sending these messages and they don't have that logic to realize that this person is grooming them. And when the conversation, teens are teens, they're wired for, experimenting and whatnot. When you're in these conversations, especially as a young boy who they're high targeted demographic for sextortion. So those boys, that drive is there. And when you have a girl that's telling you how amazing you are, it's easy to get caught up in that. So knowing to take a breath and step back, that when that conversation is headed that way with somebody that you've just met, it's probably not somebody that you think it is. They're out for ill intent. With Evan's conversations, looking back at the messages, there was a lot of inappropriate, or not inappropriate, but incorrect grammar and spelling. These, I guess, bad actors, if you will, a lot of times are from overseas or whatnot, and they are using a script that has been provided to them. And so, translating that, a lot of times there is an error that comes across, or you can tell just in reading. But again, kids are in the middle, and when we text and when kids text, it's not perfect. But that's another thing to kind of just have in the back of their mind, that if that's happening, all these things are adding up. Those are some red flags. If they're trying to get you to hide things from your parents or from your family, trying to offer, money or, something that you want, if they're trying to get you gifts in exchange for something else, those are all signs, that are, to us, seem obvious, but to kids, it's not. So it's one of those things that you have to explicitly tell them to watch for. These are not normal things. This is in that gray area, because that could be something that is in a healthy relationship if that relationship had been processed over time, as Ali said. But when it's in that fast-paced environment, that's not that line that you need to draw, that this is something not good going on.
And then to add to that, one of the things that we put in our presentations for teenagers is that they did this meta-analysis about how many children or teens are sexting, and it's about 20%. But when you ask them, they think that everybody's sending nudes. So as Kari said, these offenders use their sexual development, their emotional development, their social development against them, because they don't, like you say, it's so obvious for us. But if somebody has, a teenager hasn't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and somebody very cute is coming to you saying you're the best thing. I remember my first boyfriend, and I was all over the moon, in cloud nine. So, we have to understand that the reaction is a normal reaction, and we need to be more proactive of giving them information about sexuality or sexual development, about emotional
Right.
development, and we created a video that's called Healthy Relationship. And when I work with survivors, they told me three things. And Carrie mentioned it: love bombing. Nobody is perfect, and you are not the best person for somebody to fall in love with you that fast. Um,
Right.
Isolation, you mentioned it too.
Yeah.
And control, like, like you say, oh, you show me yours and I'll show you mine.
Right.
That is a red flag, because that is giving them control once you send,
Right.
you know what I mean, like they're trying to get that control. So yeah, I just wanted to add.
Well, and then Allie, with that, I'm only saying this based on, some of the sessions I've had and talking to the audience members in those sessions. But you're exactly right. That's where the leverage happens. You give me your stuff first. Now I can use it as leverage against you. And some of the stories that I've heard that get leveraged, that's why sometimes these things, end the way they do, because the young person does not know how to process that. And they certainly are so embarrassed, especially when they threaten, well, we're going to tell your family, or we're going to put all that picture you gave me, we're going to put it all over Facebook, and we're going to tag every relative you have.
Yeah.
That's, when I'm sorry, but when you're 15, 16, 17, 18,
That
and
is the world.
exactly what you guys were talking about.
But it's we've talked to adults that this has happened to as well, and even as a 50-year-old male that gets a message like this and says, "Got your picture, I'm going to turn around and ruin your life," and all of this. I said, even a 50-year-old male or a 40-year-old male who says, "Hey, I know I didn't send it, but is there a chance that maybe my phone somehow captured something as I was getting out of my shower or something?"
AI.
And now, that's AI you can do anything with, which is a total another story. But, we also talked about how now that does give a pretty good out for kids, and say, even if you do share something and they say, "Hey, we're going to tell everybody," you say, "It's all right. Everybody's going to know that I did that. That's my face, but not my body." That is one thing that I do think kids can use at that as a tool.
I just want to go back to kind of what you said. We they target kids, good kids, kids with something to lose, that leverage that they use against them.
Right.
And we say we were really close as a family. I mean, we are really close as a family, and they took, 16 years to build. And this kid who was he was confident, he was outgoing, and they just made, in, a couple short hours, they made him believe that all of that was gone,
Right.
And you're talking like a kid that could come to us about anything, and they made him believe that, it's over, like your life is over. So it is a lot for a kid, obviously, because it's happening all the time. And a lot of these cases are just like Evan's. The conversations, the pattern, all of it is the same. And so these kids are resorted to thinking that there's nothing left.
And I will add that talking to parents whose children were extorted, and I hate saying died by suicide, and when I talk to parents, because they were fighting for their lives. This wasn't like, give me the money and I'm going to post it in Instagram. Like, no, they were being tortured. So like, we need to talk about, imagine that kind of level of stress on fly or fight, where you are not thinking critically. And I always think about these cases, like, if somebody tell me that I work in NCMEC, I will feel like my life is ruined. And these kids are just exploring who they're going to be in life, who they're going to be in society, who they want to be. And like they say, a lot of the times we want to be like, where are the vulnerabilities? Where are the risks? Well, these are leaders in their community. They're football players. They have a leadership in their community. So they have a lot to lose. But most importantly, we need to talk about the aggression of this kind of victimization. That's why it's so important that the kids don't go to sleep with their phone. We need to help them develop some type of regulation. And I know it will be very hard in that situation, but um, I mean, those are skills that as a parent or as a safe adult, we need to help them develop those things more because what's happening with extortion and other type of victimization, it's, I mean, they're like 40, 30-year old, a bit like victimizing 14, 15, or, it's not the same. It's not the same
Yeah.
level of, peer-to-peer victimization.
Right. Well, if anyone has any questions that are watching right now online, we certainly would welcome any questions that you may have for our panel. Just go ahead and just type it into the comments, and we'll be happy to put that on the screen for you. And really, we're coming to the last end of our segment. Our third point is going to be reframing the messaging for our youth. And Brad and Kari, let's start with you on this one. Because this is obviously a very hot topic. It was so hot that when we were talking about our talking points, this was one that somehow struck a real deep chord with you all. And I was wondering why, and kind of talk to us about what does this mean by we need to reframe the messaging for our youth and for our children.
Yeah. Like we said before, making sure that you have the conversations with your kids and let them know that, there's predators, there's bad people out trying to get to them, let them know those red flags. When it happens, being able to stay calm and help kids process through it, make sure that adults know that, hey, there's things that NCMEC offers with Take It Down and resources on helping have that conversation with kids. Because, if you've not had the conversation or you have not been impacted by this or you've not heard about sextortion or the predators attacking our kids online, the first reaction as a parent is typically going to be to get elevated and think, oh my gosh, we're going to have these consequences and we're going to take away the phone and whatnot. And right. I understand that. But, you also have to have that forethought with your kids because it's real. It's happening more and more every day, every year. And it's getting into our homes and our schools and our communities and our youth group that you need to let kids know, hey, this is happening. All the things we've talked about tonight with teaching kids that emotional and developmental pieces is critical. Making sure kids know who they can go to ahead of time so they can get solid advice. And like you said, making sure their friends know if something's just not right, if they seem a little bit off, that they've got a free avenue to come to you as a parent or go to their parents. And I think having that relationship and communication with other adults in the friend group, we're all in it together. We want our kids to be safe. The educators that work at kids' school, they all love kids. That's why they do what they do. They're open to have those conversations and be a safe place. But I think making sure as adults we know where to go to get our kids tools, resources, and help when they find themselves in the situational scenario. Because Kari had mentioned earlier, it's unfortunately not if, it's more likely when they find themselves there.
I think letting kids know that, as a child, you're constantly learning. You're learning how to grow up and how to be an adult. You're going to make mistakes. That's what we do. That's how you learn. Right. You learn from your mistakes. And so I think reframing the message about not telling them don't. It's not about preaching to them about how not to be. It's, I guess, empowering them with knowing what to do and how to handle themselves in the digital world, in the social media, line of things. And to know that they always have a safe space to go to, no matter what. There's always a way to get through it. Like there is nothing that you can do, no matter what you do. Like it's a mistake and we can move past mistakes. So I think that's an important message to give to kids, is to know that nothing is permanent. we can work through anything. You don't make a permanent decision for something that can be worked through. And I think that's huge for kids, like letting them know there are options, there are things that are out there ahead of time, because they don't have that logical sense when they're in the midst of a crisis. And so giving them that, empowering them with that information ahead of time is super important.
Yeah, and Allie, let's. What are your thoughts now on kind of closing the loop on this topic?
Just to add to that, like you have conversations, like I don't think it's a good idea to send nudes or ask for nudes or create with AI, because it can get out there and you can hurt somebody or you can get hurt.
Right.
But if you do, here are the tools, here are the resources, so that if something happened, they don't sit in victimization, thinking, what do I do now? So like kind of what Kari was saying. And then also targeting the bystanders. You kind of mentioned it too, to become upstanders. If they are blasting a nude of somebody in the school, not to blame the child that is depicted on those images, but to support that child. So if the child feels like, my nude is going to get out up there, but I know that it's not acceptable, this kind of behavior, to blame me for my picture to be there, it's empowering them. And then just don't say it's there forever or it's going to ruin your life. We have many tools to take them back, and they can take control back. And I talked to a lot, some survivors, well, a lot of survivors, and what happened today, they didn't define them. It propelled them to be leaders, advocates, making changes in the law. So it's like Harry said, this is not something that is going to define you. This is, it's not going to ruin your life. We're here to help you.
I think a huge piece is always letting kids know also that they are victims, that what is happening in these circumstances, it is a crime, it is against the law, and you are a victim. And so there are things out there, people who are out there who are there, that's their job, is to help you through this. And you should come forth with it, because we need, if you report it, we are more likely to have something to try and catch those people on, the more, because they're likely not doing it only to you, they're doing it to other kids at the same time, maybe even hundreds. There is a case where they were doing 100 other kids at the same time, and so you reporting it gives a little bit more information to where it can help find the perpetrator.
So with that, I want to kind of shift our focus as we kind of start to wrap up the broadcast, and I want to give you guys a chance to give your closing thoughts. And now I want to direct it more to what can schools do, maybe take one or two really big thought ideas on this topic. And certainly we'll start, in this case, Allie, we'll start with you, then we'll bring it home to the administrator.
Yeah, so I think getting informed when we start seeing cases of sextortion, whether it was financial or for content, the schools didn't know what was happening. The same with AI and peer-to-peer victimization. So if you don't know what's happening, you don't know how to react responsibly. So get informed about what's happening. NCMEC has what's called NCMEC Connect, where we have professional training for educators, social workers. So send your staff to take those trainings so that they know what's happening and they know how to react. Have a policy about how are you going to react. If NCMEC was featured in a 60-minute segment in December, an AI where they called the victims in the speakerphone, and the children that create the AI images privately. So they were shaming and re-victimizing the victims. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, no,
So
you're
have
fine.
so have a policy about how to handle that,
Yeah,
and educate. We have the net smarts where you can it's from kindergarten all the way to 18 and for parents. So we have all of the resources to be in front of the problem and don't wait until something happen and then it's crisis
right.
mitigation. Um, don't wait for that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, Brad, I was going to say, I mean, this is the world that you both live in. Schools, obviously, you've been part of schools. I've also been part of teaching higher education for 18 years. So this is near and dear to me, which is why I advocate on this topic. So, what are some things that you believe that schools can do to really help certainly protect our youth?
I am a firm believer that you've got to get somebody in front of the kids to have an authentic, true conversation about what's truly happening and how to address it. So make sure you've got, there's guest speakers all over. NCMEC offers them. We do some. We do school conversations as well, or presentations for school. You've got to have somebody there to have that conversation with kids, just like we have had tonight,
Right.
to kids know, like, hey, this is happening. There's tools and resources out there. And then I'm also, big on schools need to share that and include adults in those conversations as well. So if you present it to your kids or share it with your kids, you got to share it with your adults too, because I think that's a huge piece in helping to start those conversations between the adults and kids. Because kids think it's weird to go talk to your parents about stuff like this. Adults sometimes have a hard time having the conversations with kids about weird and awkward relationship type things. So, having that somebody come in and speak to both groups at their level, I think is huge and impactful. Making sure that your counselors are aware of how to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think believe kids when they come to you with this information, because they don't report it often, and I don't think there's many cases where they report false accusations or false information about it. If a kid comes to you with it, make sure you're doing your due diligence. Make sure that the school has a plan in place, a procedure in place, a policy in place to follow, and make sure that it's truly investigated and looked into at the depth that is needed to try to come up with a remedy for the kids, because it's real. And giving those resources and making sure admin puts time and resources to prioritize that, you can't replace it. And it's a whole lot better to do that on the front side than it is to have to conduct a funeral.
I think, my perspective is elementary. And so we have counselors that are coming into the classroom. And I think counselors give a big talk about digital safety and your digital footprint and all of that. But incorporating these healthy boundaries and healthy conversations when you're in the apps is super important, because, as a third grade teacher, kids have phones, they're on Roblox, they're on Snapchat, things that they shouldn't just be left out in this open arena, that is dangerous. Right. So having, as schools, we're parenting kids. It's a big part of what we do is teaching these things. I think counselors giving conversations about appropriate conversations and how to set boundaries when you're on these things. It's something we have to educate our kids on in school, because it's just, it's the reality of what our schools are having to do with education.
Yeah. And guys, I'm only going to say this from more of a media perspective, because for the last 8 years, I get a chance to do school nurses, educators, as well as, admin. And a couple of things that I'm just going to share that I've heard in interviews when I've asked this similar question, what can schools do? First and foremost, there needs to be awareness throughout the community, because this is a community situation. It isn't like, hey, school, this is your job, or hey, parents, this is your job. No, this is everyone's job to notice the cues, to notice the things that all you guys have been talking about in the past hour, is that all of us are involved in awareness starting point. And that was going to be pivoting and trying some new things. Get to your point, Brad and Kari, what you guys said, get the parents involved, have that transparency so that the parents can play their role, the school can play their part. And again, this is what I've heard from some of the superintendents and principals of schools that are certainly dealing with this at whatever level that may be. It could be elementary, middle school, high school. But to really take a all hands approach, all hands on deck on this, because at the end of the day, and you guys have said it multiple times, none of us want to attend a funeral for someone that's young. I'm sorry, none of us do. And the other thing is, I'll just say this from, again, hearing some thought leaders at schools as I get a chance to travel around the country on this topic that sit in some of the stuff that I'm involved in or the interviews I get to do. And that is, don't be afraid to innovate. Don't be afraid to try new things. To your point, I mean, we're dealing with AI now. Well, that's something, who's prepared for that? Also, as you guys said, I'll be honest with you, it's keeping up with all the gaming, keeping up with all the newest social media. I mean, there's so much, and it's very difficult to stay up on all of that because let's just be honest, the technology is so accelerated. It's very difficult to keep up on things. I live in the world of social media as an author. I mean, every year I'm bombarded just trying to keep up with all the changes these platforms have, right? Like, this is what's in today and this is what's not in today. And and it's something that we all need to be part of. So with that, we're gonna get to my favorite part of this segment, and that is getting some resources. And Kari and Brad, we'll start with you. Again, we'll bring up Evan's Voice. How can Evan's Voice help maybe some people that are watching tonight's podcast?
On our website, we have links to resources that are out there, including NCMEC. We have the report line. We have Take It Down. We offer those resources on our page. Our page also just kind of keeps up to date with what we're doing with our outreach and how we try to spread the word. People can message us if they'd like us to come speak at their school or, whatever.
We've even offered for if a kid doesn't have anywhere else to turn, they feel like they don't have anybody, contact us. I'll do my absolute due diligence to give them tools and then make sure that those kids are safe. So, just trying to put resources out there for staff, for school staff, parents, kids, and then some of the media stuff we've done. We talk on some different topics as well, or not topics, but just different points and pieces. We've got some legislation in Missouri that comes, actually becomes law in August as school's starting. So, which is good, and so. That's really what we offer on Evan's Voice.
All right, and then Allie, on your side, we got a couple. Talk to us about this first one about the missingkids.org, NetSmart/home.
So our NetSmarts is our internet safety programming. We are in the awareness prevention, but that doesn't mean that we take every material to help children and parents develop those skills that children need, like resiliency, social dynamics, emotional regulation, how to ask for help. So you can go there, you can find presentations, you can find videos, you can find tip sheets, anything you need for free, you can download it. And then the other one that we want to talk about that Brad and Kari mentioned is to Take It Down. So if the child believes that their nudes are circulated online, they can go there, take it down, NCMEC.org, or just Google Take It Down. You select the pictures. By selecting it, we take a hash number, and then we send a list to participating companies. They look for the content and take it down. And we have had very good success. It takes an average for a couple of days to the company take it down. So this is a really great resource for parents and educators to be like, if something happened, it's not the end of the world. You can take control back, and here is a resource. And then the last one, and I do want to mention something more about the Take It Down. We created that tool when we saw the like the increase in financial extortion. And we
Yep.
got a lot of kids that were like, this is happening to me. I don't want to make the report. I don't want to tell my parents. Kind of what we were talking about here. What do I do? So we don't want kids to sit in victimization. So we created this tool for them to take an action. But we really want them to report to the cyber tip line. And we mentioned that before here, that offender is very likely that is offending multiple children. It's not just one. So
Right.
by making the report to the cyber tip line, we send
Yep.
that information to the ICAC, which is the Internet Crime Against Children, which is basically detectives that are specifically trained to work cases literally against crimes against children in internet. And they are great. They are all over the country. And we work with international law enforcement too. And we really want them to make the report. However, if they don't want to, and all they can do right now is to go to take it down, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, these are wonderful resources that you've been sharing. And one last one I will give, and we give this in every podcast that we do. Missouri Healthy Schools is very, very progressive. We've got a wonderful leadership team, wonderful support. It's a really very well built out website. I would encourage anyone to go see it. We've got a plethora of resources across the board. Obviously, some of those by the CDC. Obviously, some of these that we've heard about tonight, we also have up on our website as well. So that's another place that you can go. The nice thing is, and the reason why I so appreciate you guys coming on tonight's podcast is, again, it's the resources and how can we be proactive, or how can we sometimes even after the fact, how can we be there for people who have been victimized. And I just say from the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful for both of you folks being on tonight on this special edition podcast. We normally don't broadcast in July, but when we got the topic, we just thought it was just so important. And again, Allie, just thank you for all that you're doing in the line of work that you're in. And Kari and Brad, I know you guys are educators by heart. You get in this because you love kids. You love making an impact, just like I do with being a teacher for the last 18 years. And we're all in this together, and that's the thing. That's really kind of the bottom line. We're all in this together. And I'm going to read one last thing. Our director at Missouri Healthy Schools just sent this to us yesterday, and that is the House passes the Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act, and that is K through 12. The U.S. House passed the Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act, expanding online privacy protections to teens up to the age of 17, and restricting targeted advertising to minors. Though critics argue it lacks a few key requirements that would compel technology companies to make their platforms safe by default, but nevertheless, we're starting to see again more activity and action happening on Capitol Hill, and basically going after even companies and the way that they are going to use digital, marketing to kids. And again, this is a step in the right direction. I just thought I would mention it. I know it was something that was brought, to my attention yesterday by our director, and I said I would just mention it, here on this podcast. Obviously, you guys can check out more about it, but I guess apparently the House passes the Kids Internet and Digital Safety Act, and that's kind of what came out, I guess, in the last few days. And Allie, is there anything about what that? Because I know it's kind of
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah.
I heard that they were working in a few ones,
right.
but one with AI. But
Yeah.
no, I'm going to go and look at it now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just wanted to share that because it's kind of a last minute thing that I saw, and we'll just give one more last opportunity. If you guys, if someone who's watching right now online would like to ask a question live, we'd be happy to answer it as we kind of wrap up tonight's podcast. Again, Allie, just want to say thank you for your work, your continued work, and we certainly want to support you and all that you're doing. And Kari and Brad, I mean, you can't come any closer to what we do at Missouri Healthy Schools. Our mission is to support schools. This is what we do. This is why we exist. This is why the CDC funds us. So that obviously here in Missouri, this is our main focus. I also want to give a shout out to Shape America for also for allowing this podcast to go national on their YouTube channel. Again, we've had such a wonderful relationship with Shape America for so many years, and we respect their leadership, certainly on a topic like this that, again, we all face. And well, if there's no other questions, just want to let everyone know from a programming note, this concludes our podcast series for the year. So we'll have, if you check back with us on our socials, we'll be putting out our fall schedule that my guess would be coming out sometime mid-August or late August for the entire fall, semester, if you would, and then letting everyone know topics that we're going to have. I do know usually in January, obviously Mental Health Awareness Month. I know that's a big one that we do certainly every January. But I'm not exactly sure what we're doing in the fall yet, because I do know that there's some pivots being made and there's some topics that are, becoming more pressing than ever before. So I can't wait to get certainly all that information out to our viewers, and just want to thank our viewers. And I just want to say one last thing. If you watch today, or if you watch the replay of this and you feel that you've got some value on it and certainly want to share the resources, please feel free to take this link and share it to your colleagues, to your friends, to your friend group, or to your parent group. Because this is why we do what we do. We're obviously very grateful for the CDC for funding tonight's episode. And again, on behalf of Allie and Kari and Brad, we want to thank you guys for being our guests. And we really want to thank everyone for watching tonight here on Missouri Healthy Schools Podcast Live. Again, this is Guy Danhoff. We're signing off, and have a great night. Thank you all.